Thank you for joining me today on Heroes in the Field. This is Dr. Adam Ingreo, and today I am joined by two really great friends of mine who I've known for quite some time, Tom and Marie from Kusar Farms. Hi, Tom and Marie. How are you guys doing today?
Hey Adam, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. Glad to see both of you today, and thanks for joining me today to give this podcast interview. So I wanted to start just by I think when I was thinking about this podcast and having you guys on, I was thinking that you two are some of the first farmer veterans that I ever met when I started doing outreach work with other veterans around agriculture. You guys were at the very first event I ever hosted in Michigan, which was a
Yep.
grant. It was for the Farmer Veteran
Hmm.
Coalition grant,
Farmer Veteran Coalition grant writing seminar thing.
yeah, yeah, and I
We showed up there because we were looking to,
We were thinking about being vegetable farmers at the time.
yeah,
Our plans have kind of changed a little bit, but that's what at that time, our grand scheme of things was going to be.
and that was probably about 10 years ago, if I remember correctly. Maybe a little bit before that, or maybe a little after. I'm trying to nail
about,
it.
That sounds about right.
it was right
About,
before you started Heroes to Hives.
yes.
So,
So, in the Heroes of Hives, we're going on our 10th year next year. So, yeah, it's been a little over 10 years. So, I
and
remember that specifically because I remember at the end of the workshop, I think, Marie, you came up to me and you guys had the most detailed business plan I had ever seen from another farmer veteran. And
your
I was
eyes
like,
popped out of your head.
You panicked. Our business plan is now bigger, but that's not the part I present to people anymore because reactions like yours, like, oh my God. So
it was amazing. It's like you guys had thought out every possible scenario and put it in a
Mhm.
business plan. And I actually, over the years of working with farmer veterans, I use that as an example of like how powerful a business plan can be because you really can, you can put out all the scenarios and see kind of where the shortcomings are and where you want to be. And you guys definitely have had the most detailed business plan I've ever run across in my years of working with
That's
farmer
all
veterans.
perfect.
I'm one of those people that when I go like fill out grant applications or anything, and they say describe this in 3 sentences. I have not been able to describe anything in 3 sentences.
Other than her anger.
Well, it's just a really fond memory I have of the two of you, and we've had a lot of interactions over the years. But for our listeners today, I would love for you guys to kind of introduce yourselves. You're both veterans, maybe a little bit about your military background and kind of what brought you to agriculture.
Okay, I'm a Marine veteran. I served 94 to 99. If you look at the history, not a lot happened. Uh, I got out and I was aimless and pointless. And then I met Marie online and we discovered a love of gardening together. And things just started snowballing. She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I don't know. I kind of want to grow something." And she started writing up the first business plan. And she's like, "If we do this, 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 we can make some money out of it." And I'm like, "Oh, wow." And then, and that's how I got started in agriculture. Her story is much different.
Yeah.
I am an Army veteran. I served from 84 to 88. Yes, I am blah, blah, blah,
Older.
older, thank you, than Tom is. And I grew up on a farm. So when he said I want to do, I want to do the, growing
Something.
something, and not only that, I'm not only just grew up on a farm, but I'm also a horticulturalist. So growing plants is a part of me. That's not an issue. So you talk about that first business plan. That's what that first business plan was about, was that I had gone through all the scenarios that growing up on a farm I could think of that, well, if this happens, we need to do this. If that happens, we need to do that. Just because of the experience I have. And then at one point, Tom said, well, I think we should have some bees on the farm for pollinating. And I told him, well, if bees were really that easy to do, everybody would be doing it. So I need you to go out and read. And he read just about every book he could get his hands on to. And I think he had been reading
About 3 years.
Yeah, about 3-4 years before we met you, trying to figure out this bee thing. And you brought up Heroes to Hives that first meeting. So
you mentioned you were beekeeping. I'm like, oh, what do you teach? I think was the first when I heard about the bees, and you're like, oh, I'm working on something, and then it, we got, I don't know if it was email message or whatever saying, I'm doing this. Would you like to apply? I was like, okay, yeah. And she's like, yes, you're what? She looked at me and said, yes, you do. I'm like, okay, and I applied, and I got in that first class, second class. I don't know, like first official class. I know
first
you had
official class, yeah.
First official class, and you had the nuke drop off at MSU, and I got stung that first day.
That's a great introduction to beekeeping.
Right in the finger. I'm like, oh, that hurts. That hurts. Lacey gave me some the neoprene gloves, and I'm like, okay, I guess, and I've been getting stung ever since. So.
And that's, I mean, and you guys, I mean, we're part of that very first formal cohort we had of Heroes to Hive students. So you have kind of you've seen a lot in the way of beekeeping over the years. I mean, it's been almost 10 years now that you've been keeping bees. And so kind of how has that evolved? So you had this vision of being vegetable farmers to start with, and then Tom got this hair to keep bees. Now, where are you at in the whole farming thing? Are you guys doing vegetables, or is that still part of the game, or have you become really just beekeepers and doing that mostly?
Mostly beekeeping. The vegetables things are, as soon as we have actual land we can use, the vegetables might come back. But right now we don't have a
farm.
We have.
I call us farmers without farms. And if somebody out there wants to do beekeeping and they don't have the land, I'm going to tell them they can reach out to us, and I can explain in great detail what we do. But we do a hive hosting, and all of our hives are on somebody else's land. We have 5 different apiaries in 5 different areas in the state here in the state of Michigan. It's not an easy path to take, but gets our bees on somebody's property. It allows us to have more bees because they're not on our property.
We have anywhere from 3 to 10 hives in each one of them. So it's, my very busy.
Well, and it also kind of gives you a little bit of a different product line too, because now you're getting honeys from all different parts of the state, right?
Yes,
we are. Well,
and it
around the Lansing area, but but still that's 50 plus miles away from each other. So it's enough to give your different flavors.
Absolutely. And we do keep our apiaries separate because, well, like the apiary that's in the Mason area has a lot of
mint and basswood.
Basswood on it. So the honey there's some years where it's really super strong, but most years it's just a really light aftertaste of mint. And then we have another one that's on alpaca farm, clover all over the place. Then we have some that's right next to swampland, wildflowers to galore. So they all taste different.
That's amazing. Now, as far as, so for you guys, how are you selling because you don't just do honey. I know you do, regular raw honey, but you also do infused honeys. You guys do candles. What else are you guys doing?
Well, the infused honey, we see that as our savory line. It's infused with the herbs and spices and stuff that we like for marinating and basting and that kind of cooking. Our creamed honey is more of a dessert because they're all kind of fruity and sweet tasting. Plus our regular honey. We have candles. God, I need my product list.
The wax wraps,
Wax wraps.
the scent blocks, the wax melts.
Wax melts. I include
Oh,
that with
nice.
candles. And
That's the bee stuff that we have
that's right.
readily available. And we have our crafts. She does crocheting. I do
Spinning.
woodwork. She started spinning her own wool.
Wow,
Yes.
that's amazing.
It's so fun and cool. I don't use the spinning wheel. I use a drop wheel or drop spindle, which is how they spun yarn before the spinning wheel was invented.
Wow. Oh,
It goes
that's
all the way back
fantastic.
to the caveman days.
Next time we see you, you'll have to watch it. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I do woodworking, mostly wood turning, but I also do some laser work. Wood cutting out with laser stuff. I just started that recently, so I can do keychains and all sorts of stuff. If you need a bunch of keychains that say "Here to Hives" on them, I can probably get them for you cheap.
There you
Anyway,
go.
And I want to go back to our bee stuff. Normally, I do royal jelly
Ooh,
and
yes.
and
pollen.
pollen, but as we were talking before, we are having really pollen issues and queen issues, so I haven't really asked my hives to produce any of that for sale.
Hmm.
But normally we would have royal jelly and pollen and things of that nature too.
Yeah, it's been a tough pollen year this year, pretty much, I think, across the state of Michigan. And I was in the same boat. We were getting ready to trap pollen this year and, sell pollen, and it hasn't come in large enough amounts to be able to take any away from the bees. And that's something I really, you guys do, out of a lot of the veterans that we work with, you guys have been doing this a long time and you've developed a really extensive product line. And then you also have all of these other products that you include, with your direct to market sales. It's a brilliant way to set up a small business because you have like diversified income coming in from multiple different streams. And so, when those honey years are kind of lean, you've got some other crafts rely on. It's always a crapshoot when it comes to farming because you
Yeah,
can have those really tough years, and so having some other opportunities to make some sales is always a good idea. It seems like you guys have pretty extensive product line.
We've also found that like going to a farmer's market once a week, we sell almost nothing. So
Oh yes.
we've been we go to niche markets instead, like the strawberry festival, the honey festival. At the end of the month, we're going to the llama festival, and we love the llama festival. I shouldn't say this, we're the only honey producers there. So everybody is buying our honey. So we absolutely love it. So
That's really great advice to our listeners and to our students, and that's something that I kind of saw when we were doing markets as well. Was that the farmers market for honey producers? It can be a really tough go. I mean, it's almost those markets. It's a full day gig, from getting there, getting set up, and all of that stuff. And then the sales, we never really saw the sales in farmers market settings, but those craft fairs and those like specialty niche fairs, we saw the same thing. Like the holiday fairs were something that we used to always hit a lot of and just do amazing sales at those things.
the once a year events are great. The
Hmm.
every week events, it's like, well, I don't need honey this week. I don't need honey this week. I don't need honey this. I don't need it every single. At the fests, they're like, "It's you. You're back. I need more."
Exactly, exactly.
I got some last year and I ran out. I said, "Didn't our flyers and we do ship?" Like, oh yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well,
so
kind of on that, you guys have developed this small business, and one of the things I always think about when veterans are starting these honey enterprises is kind of, where do you guys see yourselves going with all of this? What's the plan for the next 10 years of Kusar Farms?
Ooh.
that's a good question. We have several things that we're waiting on to see how they pan out on where we're going to be within the next year or two.
Okay.
And so depending upon how those pan out, we're going to do be bees.
Okay.
Whether what we're going to be doing bees still in Michigan or another state, we're not 100% sure. Um, I don't want to go into too much detail right now, Adam, but
Of course.
things, we're right now in a mode where we're kind of waiting, but we don't want to wait too long.
Mhm.
So,
Things are happening.
yeah,
Yeah.
knock on wood, if everything goes right, we were looking at things on paper, and we're like going, if we had 200 hives, we could be doing this.
Mm.
And right now we're at
About 28.
28.
About
Yeah.
28.
I know at one point we had 33, but like we were talking before, we have started doing some condensing down and combining some smaller hives. And I'm not sure. He says 28, so I'll go with 28.
About 28. I'm saying
Well, that's
3,
yeah.
5.
Well, that's a really interesting place to be in, and I think a good place kind of for us to wrap things up a little bit is that you all are at a stage that a lot of beekeepers face when you've gotten to the point now where the bees are surviving, you've got a running business, you're doing what the bees are doing good, and now it's a decision to think about like what is the next step in scaling up. I it was something I've been wrestling with myself for the last several years, and you're at that point now where it's not a hobby anymore. It's more of a sideline business at this point. And now it's like, boy, the bees keep surviving. We got to do something with these bees. You're either going to sell them when you're going to increase your stock and your business capacity. And that's an exciting
Yeah.
place to be for you all.
Or a combination of both, of keeping some and selling some. So
Absolutely.
we've looked at that scenario too.
Well, that's super exciting, and I can't tell you how happy I am to kind of hear that continued growth model wherever it brings you. I know you guys will continue to do great things, and I really appreciate you both and all that our interactions over the years and your friendship and getting to see you guys at events. More not as regularly as we used to, but it's definitely always a pleasure. And
That's
I
because
really
somebody moved to the Upper Peninsula, and so we don't see them as often anymore.
yeah, I hear that a lot.
I look at these bees hives and sometimes I go, God damn you, Adam. Right?
What did I get you into?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all your fault. Good and bad, it's all your fault.
Good, bad, it's your fault. Sometimes I blame Marie. She's like, you can do this. This is what you can do. I'm like, she pushed me once or twice to go, do this, do this. I'm like, okay, I get. Oh wow, I like it, and I'm actually kind of good at it.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you
You
both.
taught me, and I'm running with the football now.
And that's what it's all about, right? It's like it's taking that
Yes.
knowledge and running with it. Yeah.
And once somebody takes the Heroes to Hive course, don't be afraid to look beyond that. That's how I got into the royal jelly production. Is that I looked beyond. Looked at the next step and said, okay, what else can I do with the bees?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not a stopping point, it's a starting point when you finish Heroes to Hives. Absolutely. That's very well said, Marie. I really appreciate that. Well,
Thank you.
I appreciate both of you and thanks for joining me today on this podcast. It was really great chatting with you. I'm going to link your guys' social media and your website in the comments below. So if anybody wants to check out Kusar Farms, order some of those great items that they have available, or see where they're going to be at next in Michigan, sounds like the Llama Festival's on deck next. You'll be able to find where you can see them. But I appreciate both of you and thank you so much for joining me today on this podcast.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Great seeing you again.
Oh, thank you. This was Heroes in the Field with Dr. Adam from Heroes to Hives. Thanks for joining us today.